Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily with Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com.
Welcome in to Fantasy Sports Daily on a Thursday. Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers hanging out with you. We are powered, as always, by fantasyguru.com, and I guess I am powered today by a couple cups of coffee, tall ones. Ray, you don't do coffee. It's earlier for you out in the West Coast, but you're not really a coffee guy, are you?
Yeah, I'm not a coffee guy. I will say this. I have drank more coffee in the last 2 months than I probably drank my entire life previously. And the reason is I like something cold in the morning. I mean, hot in the morning. Jeez, look at the rate. I don't even know what I'm saying. I get up really early. I get up about the same time as the sun does. So it's nice to get the heat. I've been doing tea and coffee, but generally speaking, I don't go out to, I'm not paying $5 for a cup of coffee, if that's your point.
Yeah, I've got the drip working upstairs. That's all we do. Just pour it in, pour the water. Good to go. And I don't even know that I truly enjoy coffee, Ray. It's just kind of the what would you call it? The tradition, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not the word I'm looking for, but you just do it. It's something to sit around in the morning and to sip on as you're getting ready for work. So hopefully everybody's got their coffee and hopefully everybody's ready for some fantasy talk. That is the goal here at FSD. Let's get you into what we have for today. We will start with this question: where are the horses? Talking about starting pitchers. None of us are farmers anymore, I don't think. There may be a farmer out in the audience. If you are, say hello in the chat room. I want to know if we've got any farmers that join us. They're actually at work right now. I don't know that they watch us live. Maybe they listen while they're in the tractor or they're herding their horses. But we're not talking about real life horses. We're talking about the guys who used to give us 200, 210, 220 in the innings pitch category. We've been talking about it. We all know about it. Ray will hit us with the facts today. On top of that, kind of ties in well, talking about the guys who can eat up innings. We will continue our breakdown of starting pitchers for today. I thought today, which Thursday is kind of a wild card day when we do these positional previews, we will spotlight a few pitchers, 5 from Ray, 5 from me, that both he and I are kind of targeting. And I should know, it's not so much that we think these guys are going to win a Cy Young. It's that we think there is value to be had. There is maybe a discount from where we think they will end up versus where they are being treated in March. So we'll get you a few of those names. Ray, one of your favorite days, we get to talk about the Yankees. Hey, they've been replaced by the Dodgers, haven't they? I mean, the Dodgers are the hated team by America. Is it still the Yankees, you think?
I'm going to say it's the Dodgers. Now, I think it's balanced by the excitement, on the West Coast. I think the world is so East Coasty, if that's a word, that, it's easier to hate those people out West that spend all that money on those foreign players kind of thing. I don't know.
I feel like the Dodgers are new money and the Yankees are old money. And I know I know the Dodgers have always had money, but people forget, was it the McCourts? Was that the ownership group? They were like poor with the Dodgers. They were over leveraged and in debt like crazy. Now, of course, the new group is making money hand over fist. And of course, the Yankees, there's over 100 years of them kind of being an irritant to baseball fans. So I think on the whole, it's still the Yankees. Maybe specifically to this year, the fear is of the big monster to the west, the Dodgers. But we'll preview the Pinstripers coming up in the show. Got some news and notes. Josh Lowe is still limping, and we'll maybe introduce you to the name Jared Jones. I don't feel like I'm hearing that name at all up to this point. You may hear the name Jared Jones a lot from this point to opening day. And some NFL news. We are in the season. It's kind of unofficial, but it's a season where NFL teams are trying to get under the cap. They're prepping for the offseason. They are ripping up contracts that never were contracts, actually. And the Buffalo Bills really put that to work on Wednesday. So we'll get to all of that. Of course, we start with the bullet points of how and why you need to jump on board with Fantasy Guru. So, Ray, tell us the how and the why as people get ready for a new baseball season.
Basically, all the sports are covered. Subscribe to fantasyguru.com. I just saved it. I just condensed it all into one sentence. We do have a variety of packages available. We've got the football offseason franchise mode football package, which is basically all of our coverage leading up to the draft. So if you want to get involved there, it's only $19.99 for all of that, all the articles, the reviews of the season from last year, et cetera, the talk about free agency. So we've got that for $19.99. We've got the all-in package, which includes NHL, NBA, MMA, PGA, NASCAR, soccer. All of that is in one. That's the all-in package. So it's one price. I think it's $75 for all of those sports. That gets you all the DFS coverage and all the wagering advice. So you should be able to make your money back doing that. We've, of course, got the March Madness guide. That just came out as well. March Madness starting a little bit later than has in recent past. That one's $19.99 if you want to get involved, just do some college basketball stuff. And then, of course, what we're spending most of the time here in March talking about, the baseball product at fantasyguru.com. That one's right now $40 if you use the promo code FSD20, FSD20. I've been told, and I was told this last week, that the price would go up this week, that we would get rid of the early bird pricing. So get in now before it goes up to $50 with that promo code FSD20. Bottom line is you can use FSD20 to get a 20% discount on it whenever you sign up for it. And it's a full season package. It's not just the preseason. We don't leave you once April starts. It's all the way through the end of the regular season at fantasyguru.com.
Love hearing that, folks. We've been telling you there's no reason to delay anymore. And again, I think it is 3 weeks from today is opening day officially. Now we got those 2 games in South Korea, 5 or 6 days beforehand. That's the Padres and the Dodgers, but actual Major League Baseball opening day is coming up on March 28th. So you got 3 weeks to go. Ray, we have a request from the chat room. There you see it on the screen. Timmy Trumpets. You want to get in on that? Yesterday, you and I were hosting on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, filling in for Jeff Manns. And as I was informed, Jeff has a tradition of starting the second hour by, in effect, kind of screaming and throbbing into the microphone. Thankfully, you took that over yesterday, and I thought you did a pretty swell job of filling in for Jeff.
Thank you. I'm not going to do it again here. No.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Sal. Yeah, it's too early for that. It's only 8 o'clock on the West Coast. It's too early for me. That's a special it's Timmy Trumpets. For those people that don't know, the Elite Sports Show is 3 to 6 Monday through Friday on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. So you can hear Jeff Manns every day there. I'm with him on Wednesdays. Kyle was there yesterday because of the fact that, as we're talking about, we had a situation with Jeff spending some time with his family. Not a situation. He just spent some time with his family. Yeah. Yeah. So he did that. And then Justin Fensterman and I also have our Elite Sports Game Time show, which is 8 to 10 Monday through Friday, where we talk about everything live, right? So, goals scored, baskets made, home runs hit. We talk about that live on the show. So no Timmy Trump today, Sal. Sorry. That's reserved for the Elite Sports Show.
I tell you what, Elite Sports Fantasy Guru, we got the morning, the afternoon, and the evening covered. This show here every morning, Jeff going every afternoon, and you and Justin every evening. So there's no excuse, really, no excuse as we hit you through all 3 time spots over the course of a day. Okay, let's get into today. Should remind you, Sal was just chiming in on the chat room. If you've got any questions, comments, maybe keeper leagues, I know we're getting a lot of that right now. Just send them our way, and Ray and I will do our best to answer those questions. Topic that we're starting with is out of the Fantasy Guru Draft Guide, and it's obviously something that pretty well every day, Ray, I think you and I mention, and we usually mention it as, oh, remember those days. Oh, remember when we used to get guys who threw innings. Let me take you back, by the way, because this is fun to see, Ray. 1879.
Boy, you're going way when they threw underhand. Okay, going way back.
It was a good one, Ray.
Okay.
Back in 1879, there was a 24-year-old by the name of Will White. And in 1879, Ray, Will White not only won 43 games, but Ray, he was the horse of horse. He is the all-time MLB. It's kind of professional baseball, I guess we should say, but he's the all-time record holder, Will White is, for most innings thrown in a single year. That number, Ray, and I want everybody to guess, okay, what do you think the all-time pitching total for innings pitched is? That number, you're all wrong, by the way, is 680 innings. It's true, Ray. When your great-grandparents say they don't make them like they used to. Will White, 680 innings pitched in 1879. How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, and it wasn't a one-off either. He had another season of 577, another season of 517,
Yeah, but how
460.
many times did he have Tommy John surgery? I wonder.
Yeah, well, I know he threw 680 innings with a 1.99 ERA,
Wow,
which
that's
is
a league winner.
that's a league winner. Oh, and by the way, his strikeout rate per 9 innings, 3.1.
So you had to give up. You had to punt strikeouts
Yep.
to get the 1.91 ERA over 700 innings.
Only twice in his 10-year career did he strike out 3 batters per 9. It was a rough era, Kyle.
Now, I should give a shout out to Old Hoss Radburn,
Of course.
who Old Hoss has one of the best nicknames of all time. Now, Ray, he does not have the record for innings pitched, but it is worth noting 5 years after Will White, Old Hoss decided to throw his name in the hopper. 678 and 2/3 innings, and Ray 60 wins. So, you know, old Hoss blew away Will White in the wins category and came up just 4 outs short. You think he was pissed off that he didn't get to 680 or 681 and topped Will White?
Wouldn't you be if you threw that much? I mean, you know, White had.
I don't know. In 1880, I mean, Ray, they were still coming out of the Civil War. It was
and honestly, they may not have even known. To be truthful, they knew you threw every game. White threw 75 of 76 games were complete, and Old Hoss had 73 of 75 games complete. So it wasn't just that they, threw a lot of. They finished what they started. Kyle, it's different. Let's check out Old Hoss's strikeout. Oh, Old Hoss. I mean, look at this, Kyle. 4.5 strikeouts in 1883 in this special season of 1884. 5.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He was a strikeout king.
I mean, that's like Bob Tewksbury pitching in the 1880s there. I love it.
0.9 whip. 6 and 7, 8 innings.
Why are we talking about baseball 150 years ago? Well, we're talking about it because today we want to talk about innings pitched and the fact that there are no more Will Whites. There are no more Old Hoss Radburns out there. There are no more Nolan Ryans. I mean, these guys just don't exist. They're gone, Ray, and I don't think they're coming back. Nope. I don't think 40 years from now we'll suddenly have a resurgence of 15 guys throwing 200 innings. You see it there in the graph right off the top. This is just the 1-year differential from 2022 to 2023. And Ray, everything is down unless you're looking for a pitcher to throw 80 innings. Then you can find more of those guys in 2024.
Yeah, 3 less guys at 200, 2 less guys at 180, 2 less at 170, 1 less at 160, 2 less at 120, 13 less at 100. And like you said, we got to go all the way down to 80 innings pitched to get a positive compared to 2022. And that's kind of shocking, but it's not. We know the way the game is going. We know that teams are more reliant than ever on bullpen arms. We know that, in the old days, back, not in the 1880s, because there were no relievers, but back in the old days when we were younger, even right before we were born, if you went to the bullpen, it's because you weren't very good. Mm-hmm. Like, there were not bullpen specialists, right? These were the guys that were failed starters. That has obviously changed. Now everyone in a bullpen throws 95 miles an hour. Oftentimes they have an issue. Maybe it's control. Maybe it's that they only have 2 pitches they can trust. Maybe there's a little bit of a split issue. Lefties or righties hit them well, but the guys in the bullpen bring it. And teams are more willing than ever to trust those guys because of that fact, and because instead of paying $30 million to get a starting pitcher, they can pay these guys $3 million and put it all together.
Who were the 5 guys that got to 200? Well, of course, Garrett Cole, although he was not number 1. Number 1 might surprise people. Logan Webb was actually number 1 on the list. Zach Gallen, number 2. Miles Michaelis, number 4, and then Chris Bassett, who we brought up yesterday, was number 5. Now, Ray, 4 of those 5 guys are going to get drafted, and they're not getting drafted because of their innings. The innings are kind of a sweetener, if you will. How about Miles Michaelis? Because he is a horse, Ray, certainly compared to his contemporaries. We may start calling him Old Hoss Michaelis. That would kind of fit, too, with his little, stovepipe mustache. I mean, he could play that role pretty well.
And he also would fit right in because he doesn't strike anybody out. He in his last 4 full seasons, if you remove COVID, right? Or the COVID year and then 2021 because he had an injury. For the last 5 years, he's thrown 180 innings, and 3 of them have been 200, including the last 2 seasons. So he's stupidly a modern day workhorse. It's true. And I think with the case of the Michaelis, the issue you run into is that he shouldn't be drafted. And if you're drafting him, he's your last pick. Because there's no strikeout upside here. He's 35 years old. He's not going to reinvent the wheel. He is a solid option in mixed leagues when the injuries strike. He's a solid option when he's in a roll and he's got all his pitches working and he's keeping the ball down on the ground. But there's just nothing to get excited about here. He's a good stabilizer in a major league rotation, but we struggle to have real value with him in the fantasy space.
So Michaelis is a guy they turn loose. You mentioned 35, and Zach Gallen's still young, but Bassett, Michaelis, Cole, Logan Webb to an extent. I mean, Logan Webb isn't old. I shouldn't say that, but when you're a veteran, you're turned loose more. You're allowed to go 6 innings. When you're a youngster, Ray, it's kind of tough to get the manager to trust you, and a lot of it is what you see on this page. This third time through the order, the OPS. Is that dramatic to you, Ray? I mean, a lot of people portray this as, man, third time to the order, you just get murdered. And I guess, from the first time to the third time for starting pitchers, it's a 55-point jump in OPS. That's, I don't know, 7-8% higher. Okay, it's tougher, but I feel like that's overblown just a bit when I see that number.
Well, there's a more complete graph in the article, and if you look at that, the on-base percentage goes up and up, the slugging percentage goes up and up, the OPS goes up and up, the strikeout rate goes down and down. Like it's clearly a trend.
Yeah,
there's no arguing that it's real. The question to your point is, and that's a valid one, is it enough to do what teams do, which is pull these guys out before they face a team the third time? I mean, and you run into this, like if you face a guy fourth time through the order, the number in OPS column drops down to 709.
Really?
So it's a huge drop. That's the fourth time through, which doesn't make any sense.
And what that means, Ray, is the guys who get to 4 times are just on it that night. They're giving up 1 run in 8 innings kind of thing.
Yep. So it makes sense, right? Because the guys that are Garrett Cole's trusted to go into the 8th inning. Okay, right? Whether or not it's valid, again, because it's a clear trend, whether or not it's valid or not, the teams think it is. It's what you and I think. They have identified this, and a lot of this has to do with the spreadsheets that I kind of decry all the time. It's that they've mapped this out and they've modeled it out, and this guy's pitch mix says this, and then the opponent's swing pass say that, and sees. So this is not willy-nilly. This is done with reams of paper and reams of spreadsheets, and teams have a plan that they, have set in stone before the season begins with all of their pitchers. Like, and maybe they adjust it in season because, the data starts showing them something different. But this trend is here to stay because, again, there is a difference, and because of what I said earlier, I think too, Kyle, that the bullpen arms are just better than they used to be. Teams used to be that you didn't want to take the ball out of your starter's hand because, oh crap, we got to go to the bullpen. Now it's like, well, let's go to the bullpen. We got a different look. We got more velocity. We got more sink. They feel like that presents more of an issue for the batters.
That's what it is, Ray. I mean, you've always had we always haven't had, but I would say in the last 25 years, 7 to 8 man bullpens, depending on the time of the season. But usually you'd have 3 really good arms in that bullpen, and you'd save them for later. And I'm not going to say the guys that we have arms 4 through 7 are great arms, or maybe I shouldn't say are great pitchers, but they are usually really good arms. Guys who are even the 5th inning dude, or the guy when you're getting beat 8-1 and you just throw in the towel. The guy that comes in to eat up those innings is probably throwing 97. These guys are bringing the velo, or they have one pitch like a sinker or something that is just really tough to hit. And that is the maturation of talent. I mean, that's where we are. The pitching is just getting better. It's not getting better in terms of innings eaten or in terms of how consistent they are, but on a per pitch basis, these guys are just able to do things we couldn't do 25 years ago. So it makes sense. It's another case of the mind beating out the heart, because the heart race as you roll with your starting pitchers and you keep them going. And that's how we played baseball until about the late 90s, is it was heart. Now it's a lot of mind. It's that analytics you talk about. Joe Madden has, I don't know if raged is the right word about it, but Joe Madden has been, ever since he got let go by the Angels, has been very open about, managers don't really manage anymore. They don't. It's guys telling you this is what you're going to do in the 6th inning. If A plus B, this is what C is. So this is how you're going to manage. And you're right, Ray. It is not changing. And you almost have to spend years earning, to get to being Garrett Cole or Justin Verlander or these guys. I wonder, as you look at this year, are there guys that could be newcomers to the 200 inning pitch pool, Ray. We had 5 last season. Maybe like the highest number I could ever imagine would be like 8. You know, you feel probably good about Cole. I don't know if I would recommend any of these other guys repeating, but there are guys in the 190s because just behind them, Ray, if you extend it to who threw 190 innings, you get down to 14 pitchers. So there are another 9 to 10 pitchers that really only need to get one extra out a game to get to 200. And there are some notable names there. Luis Castillo and Corbin Burns, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. We got 3 guys from Seattle that were knocking on the door of 200. And what's crazy about that, Ray, they have a really good bullpen. Yep. And they still let their starting pitchers go that deep into games last year.
Yeah, and their ballpark helps there in Seattle, too. It's the hardest in baseball to really produce offense in. So that factors into the equation, too. What's the home environment? What's the road environment you're pitching in? I mean, you look at this list here, and it's like Lance Lynn throwing 200 innings. He threw 180 last year. If his arm holds up, sure, right? They don't care about Lance Lynn. Sonny Gray's got no chance to repeat his 184. He's already dealing with something. Lucas Giolito's season, okay. Sandy Alcantara, season. Kevin Gausman's got the shoulder. Jordan Montgomery doesn't have a team. So how does that – Blake Snell doesn't have a team. So how does that start? So you start looking at these guys, and even a lot of the guys in the 180 range, it's like, how do you get to 200? It's just it's just a scenario where you might end up with the Merrill Kellys or the Jordan Lyles of the world, kind of because they're old and who cares, right? Like that's can you be like kind of like Miles Mikolas? Like I said earlier, he's a rotation stabilizer. He's great for a big league team because they can go out there and you can give him 6 innings every time he takes the hill. All he has to do is keep him in the game. Give up 3 runs, keep us in the game, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have a certain bullpen mix, a certain rotation mix, and a certain win-loss total to have that kind of guy. You mentioned the other day the Pirates. Like if the Pirate, Martin Perez, he's not going to throw 200 innings, but their rotation's terrible. If he makes 30 starts going 6 innings an outing, they're going to love that. So It's tough. I think one of the things you do have to worry about is a lot of these guys that start to run through those innings do have issues that make them dangerous in the fantasy game because they're not dominators. They're not necessarily putting up good numbers. They're almost just taking the innings up because they're better than the alternative versus they're really earning the innings.
Last thing on this, we used to say, okay, I want to get a guy with 200. What is it now, Ray? For you, is it 180? Is that because we're looking for guys who, are good pitchers. That's what we all want. We want good pitchers. And even if it's 125 innings, if it's good, we call it a win. But Ray, if you get a good pitcher who's hitting 180, I would say that impact is so much more significant because people don't realize this with ratios. We have 2 categories in 5x5 fantasy baseball that are ratio categories. A 1 ERA, or let's say a 3 ERA over 110 innings. It's good. It's fine. You'll take it. A 3 ERA over 180 innings is really good because the impact's just greater. You're getting 70 more innings of a 3 ERA. Mm-hmm. Whereas with that 110, with the 110 innings, what's your next 70 innings? Are they coming from the bullpen? Or are they coming from an SP6? So getting that 180, Ray, I mean, it's very simple just to explain it for those who maybe don't. I mean, it's the impact of the ratios. Mm-hmm. Those guys are making a bigger impact despite having the same number, same exact ERA. It's that impact that you have to pay attention to. So I kind of look for 180, Ray. Is that kind of where you're at? You kind of give that extra boost to a guy that did 180 or that can maybe do 180 this season?
I'd love 180, but if we're in a 12-team league, there was only 25 guys last year that got there. I mean, if you look at 2013, and backing up for a second, to qualify for the ERA title, you need to throw 1 inning per game. So it's 162 innings. So that's funny. All these guys that throw 158 innings, the record book won't show them because they didn't get to the number for the ERA or WHIP or any of the ratio categories. In 2013, a decade ago, there were 81 guys that qualified for the ERA title, meaning they threw 162 innings. Last year, it was 44.
Half. In
10 years, it's gone in half. So I want to say 180, but if I'm being honest, it's 160. I mean, that's where we're at right now. And, even going to 160, not even qualifying and dropping just below the ERA title. We're at 45 guys. So 2 or 3 a team is kind of what you get, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people do lean pitching at draft day because they're trying to get those 3 guys on their roster thinking if I get those 2 or 3 guys and these other teams have 1 or 0, I've got a significant advantage.
What was it? Was it Labor or Tout Wars you were in with the innings pitched as a
Tout
category?
Wars.
Tout Wars. Do you like that emphasis? Okay, we've got less of the innings being pitched now. Do you like the fact that a guy like Miles Michaelis gets a boost because of the innings? I mean, is that better? Because wins is what it's replacing.
Right.
People don't like wins. Innings, it does give credit to these rare breeds, I guess, that can get to 180 innings.
Yeah, Colin Poche had more victories than Logan Webb last year. I mean, are innings perfect? No, but we're talking Miles Michaelis. He has a job, and the Cardinals are going to give him the ball 32 times. He's an important player in Major League Baseball. I think it's fair to say that should be something we consider. And I think it adds another level of strategy, and it's indirectly something you and I have discussed a lot here. Like a guy like Tyler Glasnow. Like, how are you taking Tyler Glasnow 45th overall when you legitimately have no idea if he can throw 130 innings? Like, he'd have to be the greatest pitcher of all time to be the 45th best player if he throws 130 innings. So, again, I've said this previously. I feel like innings pitched is really good to have. I almost want it to have something else, but I do appreciate the fact that workload and being out there and showing up and doing your job matters. So I like the Tout Wars setup.
Pitcher Workloads column is a part of the Fantasy Guru Draft Guide. As you can see there on the graphic, you'll also get some information on the guys who increased their total batters from one year to the next, increased their total pitches from 1 year to the next. So a lot of things to hunt through in that article, and certainly a trending topic every year, I think, in fantasy baseball. That dovetails almost perfectly into talking about starting pitchers today. All week long here on the show, we've been discussing that position and kind of started with the guys at the top on Monday. We gave you some surprises on Tuesday from a year ago. Then we went through the disappointments of last year yesterday. Today, Ray, you and I get to spotlight a few names that, and I hate to say these are our guys. I'm looking at my list, and I like these guys, but I don't have to have them on draft day. But these are guys that perk my ears, if you will. In fact, coming off of what we were just talking about, 180 innings, I'm looking at my list, Ray, and I would be happy if 2 of my 5 guys got to 180 innings. So again, we're readjusting expectations.
Right.
Let's go through the list. You got 5, I got 5. Okay, here they are. You can see it. I'll read it just so for people who are hearing us audio only. I've got Joe Ryan, Hunter Brown, Kyle Harrison, Frankie Montas, and yes, don't shake your head, Ray, Jacob deGrom. I'll tell you why in a bit. Who are your 5, Ray?
Brian Bello, Christopher Sanchez, Nick Lodolo, Griffin Canning, and Seth Lugo.
Seth Lugo?
Seth Lugo, Kyle.
Okay, so let's get into our parameters. For me, Ray, maybe yours are different. We'll let you explain. But my parameters on this were guys that I think have shown a skill set, obviously, or there's some kind of, something that's looked good. And I just feel when looking at ADP, this is going to be mainly ADP driven. I am not a guy who says, boy, I love these 10 players, and in every single draft, I'm going to get these 10 players. Like, I don't care if I have to draft them 3 rounds early. There might be a couple of those names. But with pitching, very rarely have I just said, oh, I want this guy everywhere. I've gotten the same guy in multiple leagues, but I'm a big fan of tiering, and so I kind of consider guys to be in the same tier. But I looked at ADP and I said, well, I think these guys are a little undervalued. I think they're better maybe than what the ADP indicates. So mine, Ray, was mostly driven off of current ADP and what I think they can return. Okay. How about you with your list?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, Seth Lugo is not someone that, but it's like his ADP is 275. So, yeah, I think it's a combination of what we expect performance-wise and cost. That's basically where I ended up as well.
Okay. Let's go through your list. You can just kind of give a little write-up, a little paragraph, couple sentences on each guy and why they're on here.
Yeah, Brian Bello, I think that he's got an issue with left-handed pitching, something he's working on. I've detailed that in the Breakout Pitcher of the Year column. You'll have to read it to see where he finished in the rankings there. And I think that's something he needs to do is face lefties and complement his stuff against righties, against figuring out lefties. The team, we're hearing rumors they want to sign him to a long-term deal. So clearly, I think that's another feather in his cap. The Red Sox believe in him. I just think he's an ascending pitcher, not superstar, but ascending. Christopher Sanchez is another guy that all he does is get ground balls. He doesn't miss bats at an elite level, but he misses enough bats and he doesn't beat himself with the walk. He has problems when he elevates the ball. When he gets it up in the air, righties hit the ball 500 feet off him. So there's, but I think the third thing with him is the workload, right? If he can increase the workload, last year was the first time he went over 115 innings, I think. If he can increase that, he's a usable piece out of the Phillies rotation. Nick Lodolo, he's starting to ramp things up. Then he had a little bit, I don't know if it's a setback with his leg, but Lodolo is a dominant strikeout arm, period. It's a matter of how often he can get out on that bump. His ADP has not increased at all because of the uncertainty of when he's going to start the season, but that's a guy that could strike out 11 and a half, 12 batters per 9 innings as starting pitcher. That's really attractive. Griffin Canning is a guy that, Kyle and I discussed previously here on the show. He took some incremental steps last year, nothing fantastic. But if he takes those incremental steps, holds on to them, and throws 170 innings this year, to what we're talking about, he's very usable. Can he get there? History says no. Okay, but there's also not a rush to get him in ADP. And then Seth Lugo, no one talks about Seth Lugo, but it's interesting because his ADP is 275. So people are drafting him, right? It's one of those things kind of like Miles Mikolas. It's like the Royals are just going to let him pitch. And if it's 190 innings, it's 190 innings. And he's much better than people think. He's not great. He's not breaking out at 35 years of age, whatever the hell he is, but he's pretty solid and he's pretty cheap on draft day.
Okay, so that's your list. R.A. Dickey, by the way, whose image is there, did not make the list, I don't think. But that is R.A. Dickey, right?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Here's mine, and I guess working from higher end to lower end, and I think that's the order Ray has posted them. Joe Ryan, to me, I don't know how many people realize, had 11 strikeouts per 9 last season. He is a big strikeout arm. He went from 147 to 160. I think this year in the innings pitched, 175 to 180 is absolutely doable. His ADP is 37. He's an SP2. I love him as an SP2. I also trust what Minnesota does. Minnesota is pretty damn good at developing pitching and keeping it going. So I like where Joe Ryan's at. I love facing the AL Central, all that. Hunter Brown, ADP is 71. Here's the thing with Hunter Brown. I give a guy a lot of credit for showing up on opening day and making it through the entire season as a rookie. He made almost 30 starts as a rookie. Now you're going to say, well, Kyle, they were 30 bad starts. They weren't all bad. In fact, I would say a majority of them were nothing but really positive. What his issue was, and it's the reason his ERA was over 5, late in the season, he had 4 or 5 games where they, in effect, left him out there to take a beating. He gave up 6 runs, 7 earned runs, and that's part of fading. It's a rookie season. It's your first real go-around. B, I love the fact that the Astros actually kind of trusted him and said, this is not going to bury the kid. He's not going to crumble because the last time out he gave up, 6 runs in 3 innings. And when you look at those games at the end of last season, let's look at like against Seattle, what it is, 6 runs in 2 2/3. The next time out, 5 innings, 9 strikeouts, 2 earned runs. You look at 4 1/3 innings against San Diego. He gave up 6 runs in September. The next time out, 5 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. His last 2 starts were pitiful. He gave up 13 runs in 8 1/3 innings. So when you look at that ERA, understand he was like an ERA of 3.9 for about 3/4 of the season. And then the end of August and all of September, for the most part, buried him. He's going to be out there, and he's in line for another 30 starts. Now, I don't know if the innings get to 180. I don't think so. People have talked about this guy as just learning at the knee of Justin Verlander. Maybe even more of that can continue this year. So I like Hunter Brown there. Third guy, Kyle Harrison. He is the number 2 pitcher on San Francisco. He is in a pitcher's ballpark. His issue last year were home runs. Gave up a lot of home runs, unfortunate home runs. He'd be pitching well. He'd walk a guy, give up a home run. I think he's going to improve. His ADP is outside the top 100 amongst pitchers. And then the last 2 guys, Ray, I just think are too cheap for their talent. Frankie Montas at 132. If I get 22 starts of Frankie Montas, I think I'm getting 15 really good ones. I think he's got that skill set. I do worry a little bit about pitching in Cincinnati, but I think at that cost, 132 amongst pitchers, talking about a guy you can get an SP5, SP6, and then finally deGrom, Ray. Here's the thing. The ADP is 177. That's frankly free. Now, I don't know how many leagues you're getting him free at that cost, I think in a lot of leagues, right, home leagues, he's going to go before that. I have found that in home leagues, people are much more willing. If they've got IL spots, they'll draft deGrom and say, I'll throw him on the IL. Sounds like a great plan in March. You get to May, you get to June, and he's still not back. And you got other issues arising. So people tend to draft him earlier and then bail on it. But Ray, I think the key here is if I draft Jake deGrom, he's my SP8, my SP9. He's going on the IL. And honestly, I'm just looking for 10 starts at the end of the year. That's kind of what I think, 10 starts. And Ray, with that level of expectation, instead of what other people have put on deGrom in previous years of 30 starts, 25 starts, 10 at a 177 ADP amongst his position, then I'm getting in on Jake deGrom, Ray.
And I made the face earlier when you said deGrom, but under that scenario, it makes sense. And I've been really surprised and kind of pat on the back to everyone in the industry watching these industry drafts the last week or so. deGrom's going for $1. He's getting drafted in the 24th round. Like I'm surprised because again, these are the same people that had to draft him in the first and second round every year, right? So I'm very surprised to see people being measured. And if the industry is measured, home league folks, maybe they'll be a little bit measured too. And if you're looking at him and thinking 8 to 10 starts of dominance, and that's your plan going in, and you can store them on an injured list and all that, I think that's totally fine to be doing this.
Now, be honest with me, Ray. In years past, you never cared about Jake deGrom. At this cost, you now care about him a little. You've at least considered him, haven't you?
That is absolutely correct. I would consider him at this cost, yes.
Okay. And of that, that trio of, and we talked about this earlier in the week, the trio of Kershaw, Scherzer, and deGrom, all these guys who are going to be injured. I like deGrom the most of all of them. Absolutely lean in that direction over the other two. Kershaw's pretty good too, but Scherzer, kind of cool to that idea. So there's the list again. My 5, Joe Ryan, Hunter Brown, Kyle Harrison, Frankie Montas, and Jake deGrom. Ray goes with Brian Bello, Christopher Sanchez, Nick Lodolo, Griffin Canning, and Seth Lugo. There's rumors, Ray, that Bello may be getting a contract extension with the Red Sox going into the season.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone seems to love him there. And again, he's ramped up his innings. And, he's been effective. He was beaten up his last couple of starts. They kind of left him out there last year. It drove his ERA up like half a run for the season, too. Yeah. I think he's definitely an ascending pitcher. And this is an organization in Boston that they need to start building around these young guys. It's something, obviously, they're working on.
Okay, so there are some of the favorite pitchers that personally Ray and I have for this season. Tomorrow on the show, we'll wrap up starting pitchers by taking a look at some prospects that you may need to know about, maybe even stash on draft day. Let us now make our move, Ray, to today's team preview. As you might expect, when you do the New York Mets on Wednesday, you follow with the other team in Gotham on Thursday. That is the New York Yankees. And what do you know? We begin with a player profile, Ray, of a guy who just fits perfectly with today's discussion. Innings pitched. Let's take a look at Carlos Rodon over the years. 139, 165. Hell of a start. I mean, his first 2 years, 51 starts, and 300 innings. Then we got to the Carlos Rodon experience. 69 innings, 120, 34, 7, 132, 178, and last year, Ray, 64. He roasted a lot of people last season. Not Ray, not Kyle. We weren't touching this guy. The Yankees, they're probably wondering if this is the biggest waste of money, and they've wasted a lot of money, but this may be one of the biggest. Carlos Rodon, Ray, I am still, even at a much lower cost, his cost is way cheap this year, but gosh, I am still pretty cool to the idea of Carlos Rodon this year.
I've gotten upset with the Giants with the opt-outs and not signing veterans long-term. I'm glad this guy left. It's like, and we said it when this happened, when they gave him the 160 over 6 years. We're like, man, like, what are you doing? I guess it's the price of business to get a guy who could be an upper end elite level pitcher, but his track record is a mess. And, we're seeing reports now that he's trying to get his confidence back. Dude, you're a pro pitcher for a decade and you're making $160 million. You don't have any confidence. Like, his velocity is down a couple miles an hour in spring this year. They're saying, don't worry about that. I'm worried about that. You see there on the screen that in 2021 and 2022, he was one of the better starting pitchers in baseball. He earned a total of $53 in fantasy value. Like, he was a $25 pitcher each year. Last year, he was in the negative. So last year was a disaster. Spring thus far has not been good. And you said it, the price point is insignificant compared to where it's been in the recent past. But I'm I'm struggling to every time he makes an outing, every time I read a report, every time he talks, I want to drop him in the rankings at fantasyguru.com because I'm just not seeing a path to him returning to his dominance, and I'm certainly not expecting him to return to throwing 178 innings.
Yeah, you mentioned his spring, Ray. The velo is still pretty far down, right? With Carlos Rodon, I think I saw a number like 93 or the low 93 range. And he was a guy in those other years, Ray, hitting 95, between 95, 96. So he's still trying to rediscover some of that velocity here in spring training.
Yeah, and I mean, it's guns in spring, what you're trying to accomplish in spring, mechanics and all that stuff. I've always find this fascinating, and we've talked about this previously. Like in the old days, guys showed up to spring to find it, right? They didn't train. These guys train year round, so I don't really get why they show up to camp and everyone's 3 miles an hour down on their velocity, and here, meanwhile, Tarek Skubal's throwing 100 miles an hour. Like I don't know what these guys do or don't do, but when you're Rodon, and again, when you're a pro athlete who has hit the pinnacle of your sport, which he has had in the past, right? To admit to the public you don't have any confidence, like I'm really nervous about that. Like this guy should be coming in saying, yeah, I know it was messed up last year, but guess what? I'm getting right back on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem like he feels that way. And when the stuff on the gun starts telling me it's not coming out of his hand that way either, you got to be nervous.
I look at that ADP, Ray, names like Bailey Ober, Mitch Keller, Jose Barrios, Nick Pivetta, Hunter Brown, who I just talked about, Brian Wu, Bryce Miller. I mean, all of these guys, Ray, kind of get me more excited than taking a shot on Rodon. And most of those guys are going after Carlos Rodon right now in drafts.
Yeah, and I think that this also depends a little bit where you live, because out here on the West Coast, people probably hate him because he left the Giants and all that. On the East Coast, he's a Yankee, right? And that adds a round. That adds $1 in an auction. That does, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get a hometown discount if you're living on the East Coast with Rodon. And unless you're getting a discount, I don't think he should be on your radar. Like if you're looking at him and he falls, 5 rounds past his ADP and you're like, all right, my staff is strong, I'm going to take a shot. Okay. You're going to take Rodon instead of grabbing a rookie pitcher. Okay. Take that shot. But you can't be adding him as like one of your top 3 starters, in my opinion, because I don't see evidence to support that that's a logical thing to do.
Let's continue along with some fantasy relevant discussion on the New York Yankees. They're our team that we are previewing. Ray, number 1, Judge Soto. Everybody loves him. Everybody's expecting huge things. I'm wondering, does it matter much where these guys bat? Because I don't know if we've settled on anything. 2, 3, vice versa. Maybe Judge goes back to leading off. Does that matter with these two guys? Or do you just say, hey, what the hell? I don't care who bats where. The numbers are going to be good. Maybe I'll get a little more of this. Like, it's just weird. I don't know if, like Soto, am I getting less of a chance of any stolen bases if he has Judge behind him? With Soto, if he bats behind Judge, do I get a lot less walks? I find that it's maybe an exercise in futility because guys are superstars no matter where they are at. But I just wonder, is it going to make a difference to you when Aaron Boone fills out that lineup card where these two guys are?
Here's the number that matters to me most, and it's 150. That's the number of games I want these guys to play. They play 150 games, it all figures itself out.
Yeah, you'll let them bat 9th if they play 100.
Yeah, just play every day, right? Now, Soto has shown the ability to do that. Obviously, with Judge, it's more of a varied experience. I mean, I don't know. I think really my opinion of this is way too much gets made out of this. There are a bunch of studies by a bunch of really smart people that show lineup protection is a myth, doesn't really exist, that it doesn't really matter where you hit in the batting order other than the fact that your plate appearances go down as you drop in the order, right? Whether it's Judge or Soto might come down to their comfort level. I also never understood this. What difference does it make if you hit leadoff, second, third? Once the first inning's gone, you're all the same. You're all a hitter. So you have to talk to the players. You have to understand what they want to accomplish. I think it would be ideal if they go righty, lefty with their top 4, which might mean Soto is a better fit at the 2 spot. But yeah, 150 is the number that matters to me. If they play every day, it figures itself out.
I want to look at this with Soto because, Ray, the on-base percentage has always been like just insane throughout his career. But I wonder actually how many times, because we think, on-base percentage leading off, he has only let off twice. Is that right? Yep, yeah, twice, Ray. His whole career, just twice. He's usually hit third. And I'm not saying that's bad or good, but it's just kind of wild. This guy's the on base. He's the Ted Williams of his era. And not that Ted Williams led off either, but now in this era where you say, okay, get that guy, the on-base percentage is the number. That's what we want. We don't put our best hitter at number 3 as often.
Ryan
Number
Noda.
2,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, Ryan Noda, exactly. It's just wild to see Soto at number 1, and he probably should be 3 or 4, so that's where I think he's at. Question 2, how about the guys orbiting around Judge and Soto? This is maybe a little more confirmed, Ray. Wherever Judge and Soto are, looks like DJ LeMahieu's ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Anthony Rizzo's behind them. Those are the proverbial catbird seat. If those two monsters are between you, Rizzo and LeMahieu, Ray, just by hanging around, can put up some really good numbers this year.
Yeah, LeMahieu to me, and we've talked about him before this season. LeMahieu at this point of his career is the definition of just the guy. Throw it up, just the guy. DJ LeMahieu. Now, being just the guy and hitting leadoff in front of those two guys, now we got Brandon Nimmo now, right? We got a guy hitting 15 home runs, batting 265, scoring 100 runs, right? So that will be very intriguing. DJ LeMahieu is woefully miscast as a leadoff hitter. Okay, no way should he be batting leadoff. But you look at this team. I mean, I said this previously. I mean, they could also do the following. They could put Verdugo first, then they could go Judge. Then they could go Soto if they want to go lefty, righty, lefty at the top. I think Verdugo is a much better option for leadoff than DJ LeMahieu. I don't think Anthony Volpe should be there because he's got, he's still working through things and he doesn't get on base a ton, even though he's athletic. But if LeMahieu's there, he's got to be someone that we bump up boards a little bit. Rizzo, it has to stay healthy. And if Rizzo stays healthy, if his head's okay, he's an aging player. He's almost 35. But, I mean, he could hit 25 to 30 home runs. I think that's very fair. And with Judge and Soto ahead of him, I mean, he's got to be an 80-plus RBI guy. He could go. He can go 27, 98 this year. Like, he could do something like that. So he might end up being a sneaky addition in some leagues as a corner infield spot.
Yeah, he figures to be batting with guys all over the base paths, one way or the other. Question number 3. Is Clay Holmes a top 10 closer? Closer for the Yankees, guy who's mainly been a power 7th, 8th, and now has gradually worked his way into the 9th inning. Top 10 guy for you, Ray, pitching for this team?
I'm going to say no. I think he's a strong RP2, so I have no problem. But I have no problem rostering him, but I need him behind somebody else. And the reason is that there's a little bit of concern with some hiccups here. Like every once in a while, there's some physical thing, or there's just a 2 or 3 outings in a row where he just kind of loses the strike zone and such. I think he's a very solid hurler. I think that, his strikeout rate is good. I think that his ground ball rate is elite. So there are definitely pieces here that if we were going to say, Ray, what's your expectation this year? And I say, well, my expectation is 28 saves. Could he still get 38? Yeah, he could. So to your point, I think he can be an RP1, but I would want to draft him if I could as an RP2.
I wonder what they'd do if Holmes struggles or doesn't work out.
It's kind of messy in that pen.
Yeah, and not that Loaiziga has been awful. I mean, he's fine. Ian Hamilton was like unhittable for like 3 months last year. So they've got a guy. They would probably make a trade if it got really bad.
I think it's Loaiziga, to your point, but his ADP's in the 700s. Like no one cares, and I think it's partly because they believe in Holmes, but I also think it's to your point that people look at this and say they'd have to do something. Like Loaiziga just doesn't engender confidence right now.
Let's go to the pitching staff, Ray, on the starting side. It's a very veteran staff. Cole, Rodon, Stroman has been added. Clark Schmidt. You got to get an outlook on Clark Schmidt. And the Yankees run into this constantly where their prospects are always treated as probably better than they are. And I think Clark Schmidt ran into a bit of that. I still have a little faith, Ray. I mean, Aaron Boone has been fairly adamant in the spring. People are you going to have Schmidt in the rotation? It's like, yeah, he's going to be in our rotation. We want to throw Clark Schmidt. There's not a lot of pressure on him with these 3 guys ahead of him. Now, it may change if Rodon's injured or Cole's injured, but I kind of like the flyer. I think yesterday I mentioned Brett Beatty as my flyer with the Mets. Kind of liking it with Clark Schmidt too. And again, this is like an SP7, SP8, but I could see a dozen wins and like a 3.7 ERA and decent strikeouts. Nothing like that's going to win you a league, but certainly a guy that you can stick into your lineup when need be over the course of injuries and over the course of 6 months.
Yeah, and when you're going back to the list of names I mentioned, like when I say Seth Lugo's 34 and he's on the Royals, and it's like, maybe he takes a next step. Maybe it's a tiny little option for the maybe. Clark Schmidt's option of maybe taking the next step is much bigger. Now, I think his floor is much lower than a guy like Lugo too, because I still worry about Clark Schmidt and his pitch mix, and sometimes he loses the strike zone, and I don't know if he can consistently throw 159 innings like he did last year. He hasn't shown an ability to stay off the injured list long term, so he's got a live arm. But to your point, I think that he's someone you draft expecting, like you said, if he gets 10 victories with a 3.9 ERA, that's a win. So it's not, I really struggle to see him being someone that in 4 months we're saying, man, this guy's having this breakout season. He's not the guy for me to do that. He's just a guy I think that you add at the end of a draft because you're hoping that pedigree and that talent takes that step.
Soto was the big ad. Don't forget Alex Verdugo, who Ray mentioned. Trent Grisham is now with the Yankees as well. Maybe a name to keep an eye on. And, of course, Stroman in the rotation. Prospect-wise, Ray, I'll cheat a bit here. Jason Dominguez, I'll throw him in here. And I'm wondering, Ray, I guess post-All-Star break, I'll just say that. Is he worth stashing? Or is there – because I tend to think, Ray, something will happen in the outfield by the time he's ready to play, and maybe we get something similar to last season. And last season was pretty attractive, and then he had the unfortunate injury late in the going. I bet a lot of people were planning on protecting him and keeping him in certain leagues, and still got the prospect pedigree, but it's a little more crowded in the outfield now. They got the injury that he's coming off of. Is he a guy more wait and see, or is there some stashability with him?
Well, I think you look at the way the roster is currently constructed, and it's Verdugo and Soto, 2 outfield additions, right? And then Judge. That's their outfield. Then they've got Stanton in the DH spot for however long he can stay healthy, and who knows how long that is. They added Grisham, to your point, who's really struggled offensively, but he does have some power, does have some speed, and plays really good defense. So there's not really a fit here because they're paying Grisham, right? They're paying Stanton. They're paying these guys, and Dominguez is not getting paid. So I think that, is it reasonable to think in 3 months one of those 5 guys isn't hurt? No, that's not reasonable to think. So I think Dominguez could be a stash, but I don't like it because I think it's legitimate to say he's their 6th outfielder right now. I think that's based upon just the roster construction. So yeah, I'm going to say no. 15-team league, your last pick kind of thing. Yeah, but I think that he's going to just be someone that we're going to have to pick up in season. And unfortunately, if that does happen, because Judge is going to miss a month or whatever, then the bidding is going to be pretty ferocious.
We always conclude our team previews with give me a name you're taking a chance on. Give me a name that you're passing on. So, Ray, which 2 Yankees land in those 2 spots?
I'm going to take a chance on Anthony Volpe. He power speed last year. There were holes in his game, but there's a lot of guys with holes in their game. He's adjusted his swing this offseason. There are reports suggesting that he kind of got back to where he used to be. So there's some growing excitement that the strikeout total is going to go down. He's going to, hit 250 this year or something like that. So I'll say Anthony Volpe. It's too obvious to say Carlos Rodon, so I won't do it. I'll say Nestor Cortez. I think there was a lot of Luis Tiant, Johnny Cueto, that kind of thing going on. And with the injury he dealt with, there's no heat with Cortez, but there's also really no interest to me. I don't look at him at this point as much different than Miles Mikolas. Maybe he gets back to where he was, but I'm just struggling to get there right now.
Thank you for allowing me to shoot the proverbial fish in the bucket, Ray. Giancarlo Stanton is your take a pass on guy.
That's fair.
Let's just say that for the record. The guy I'm taking a chance on, Ray, is Rizzo.
Okay.
I think what he is, he's not a starting first baseman, but let's say he's a corner infielder. If you just look at ADP on corner infielders, he's barely inside the top 50. And so when you start thinking about draft day, you're in a 12-team league, obviously 24 of first base and third base, and then probably another 24 to 30 guys of corner infielders, bench guys, utilities. Rizzo is really cheap for batting 4th in this lineup. And I get it. He's old and the concussion, but again, no cost. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. There are a lot of guys I would note in that range of Rizzo, like Jose Abreu sitting there, Ty France, Matt Chapman. I mean, all these guys have faults, of course, but Rizzo, I think, maybe has the highest upside of any of those guys, where it wouldn't be crazy if we had a 30-90 season from him. So I still like him as a strong corner infielder. He would be my guy to take a chance on. That is our look at the New York Yankees You want to talk about a 180 tomorrow? The Oakland Athletics. How about that? From Yankees to A's. It's amazing how much can change between two teams right next to each other in the alphabet. So we'll get to
When
that.
you talk about
Friday.
Reggie Jackson and Ricky Henderson, Kyle, are they going to come up?
Yeah, Gene Tennis, Carney Lansford, Dave Stewart. Might as well talk about the old days, right? Because the current days are pretty depressing. Although they still have guys you want, or not want, but guys you should draft. How about that in a fantasy league? It's not barren. There are some guys you can take a shot on. News and notes. Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Start 1 was good. Start 2 yesterday, Ray, not so good. 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks in 3 innings. Doesn't mean much, but maybe that'll keep the cost down. I still like him. I still think he can be an SP1. If I really wait on pitching and he's there, I'm still fine with taking him as an SP1. While he was struggling yesterday, Oakland A, Miguel Andujar, Ray, 2 home runs. I guess he gets to be our bridge between the Yankees and the A's.
Well, that's why I was trying with the Reggie Jackson and Ricky Henderson thing, but I think a more applicable one would be Andujar. And remember, Andujar had that one season and then vanished?
He's got no strikeouts in 19 spring at-bats.
Pretty good.
Yeah. And Ray, what's going to keep him? If he's hitting, he's playing.
And then they're going to trade him. So they're going to play him until they can trade him. Yep.
It's up to him. And that's, again, I don't think he fits in a 12-team league and a lot of, but I could see that guy being a pickup in season. And it's not good everywhere, but it's like, wow, I got a 278, 18 homers, and 80 ribbies from this guy. Got him for free. How about that? Miguel Andujar. Possible. Josh Lowe, still not ready. Dealing with that hip injury. It's taken longer than they thought. Robert Stevenson of the Angels. I know a lot of people drafting him to be the closer there. He's had a bit of a bulky shoulder in spring. He did get in a bullpen session yesterday. Paul Skeens will not be in the majors with Pittsburgh. We told you about that yesterday. But Ray, following up on that, there's now rumblings of a guy named Jared Jones for the Pirates, who is not Paul Skeens. He was not one of the top 2 or 3 picks in baseball last season, but he is a guy who's probably a top 50 prospect, and he's certainly a part of the future. They are now talking about Jared Jones with the possibility of making this Pirates team out of camp.
Yeah, second-round pick in 2020. He threw, let's look at his innings total, 66 innings in 2001, 122 in 2022, 125 last year. So he's been in that 125 range, which in the old days, we'd say that guy needs more seasoning. Now it's like, well, you throw 250 innings above A ball, let's go.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, it's only 120 innings above A ball. So a lot of this is lower level, but the stuff is good, to your point. He's an ascending player. He's got a good fastball. The command is something, it's he's one of those guys that the stuff wows you. Like the fastball slider combination is really good, but what's his command and control look like? And that's something he's still working on. You can see that last year in his walk rate. It was 10% at AAA. It was 9% at AA. So he's someone, we did add him to the rankings over at fantasyguru.com at the bottom of the SP chart. He's way down at the bottom, but he is someone that you can dream on because he does have a live arm.
Yeah. And I think things have to occur because the Pirates, who we touched on a bit yesterday, they do have 3 arms at the top that they're counting on for 160 to 180 innings. And so do you want to push a guy like Jones? It's probably a midseason call-up, I think, unless he just forces the issue here in spring. Want to note that Mike Zunino retired. I brought this up yesterday with Ray on the SiriusXM Fantasy Show. He concludes with a 199 average. That sucks. But the other thing, Ray, he was the number 3 overall pick in the 2012 baseball draft. And honestly, you get an 11-year career, Ray, I guess you can say that was a pretty good pick. Mm-hmm. I was looking at that 2012 draft. Number 1 was Correa. Number 2 was Buxton. Number 3 was Zunino. Number 4 was Kevin Gausman. Pretty good start there.
Pretty good.
Max Fried was 7. David Dahl, Addison Russell, 10 and 11. Lucas Giolito, 16. Corey Seager, 18. Michael Wacha, 19. Marcus Stroman, 22. I mean, the first 22 picks, Ray, we'll erase Zunino.
Right.
But you've got, I guess Dahl's out of baseball. I haven't seen David Dahl.
Yeah.
Is he still with the Rockies? He's out. Okay. So you've got.
He's still kicking around somewhere.
Okay. Correa, Buxton, Gaussman, Freed, Giolito, Seager, Watkins, Stroman. That's a pretty good 10 years later or 12 years later to have 8 notable names in the first 22 picks that are still plying their trade in baseball. Again, you call it a huge win for that 2012 draft.
About 3 weeks ago, David Dahl signed a minor league contract with the Phillies.
Okay.
So he's still trying.
Yeah.
He tore his spleen diving for a catch. His body just broke. But yeah, no, that's, and people want to hear that and be like, that's not that good. That's actually really good. Go back and look at some of the drafts. There's names you've legitimately never heard of that were top 10 picks. So yeah, that's a really good group of players there in the first round. The GMs and the front offices did a pretty good job there in 2012.
Your Giants selected number 20 that year. Marcus Stroman was still on the board, Ray, and they went with Chris Stratton was the selection.
And Chris Stratton's had a decent career, but they should have taken Marcus Stroman.
Well, it's all water under the bridge at this point, 12 years later. Quickly on football, things going on in the offseason. The Commanders added Zach Ertz. See if he's got anything left in the tank. It's a 1-year deal. And then Buffalo, Ray. Wow. Cutting guys on defense, cutting Mitch Morse, who's been their center for like 80 games. Renegotiating Von Miller's contract. Mitch Trubisky is back. It was a wild and woolly day for the Buffalo Bills. They are way over the salary cap. So they've still got a lot of stuff to do, but man, it came fast yesterday. So like Jordan Poyer is a longtime safety starter for them. He's still pretty good. He is old. And this is the nature of the NFL. You get a little long in the tooth and it's easy to cut you. They could bring these guys back, but the Bills are one of a few teams that really have a lot of work to do with the salary cap. This
Tre'Davious White was released too. He's dealt with injuries of late, but as you mentioned yesterday, very good defensive player. It comes at you fast, and we talked about this in more depth on the Elite Sports Show, on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio 3 to 6 Monday through Friday. The Bills, this is getting rough quick, right? They've still got further financial things to do. Where are they at with Stephon Diggs on offense? Can they hold on to Gabe Davis? Most people say no. So their offense they need to kind of revamp the wide receiving core for one of the best quarterbacks in football on Josh Allen. The defensive backfield's now vanishing. They still have further cuts. This is, we're gonna see. We saw it last year, and we're gonna continue to see it. Josh Allen really has to carry this team in certain respects. Like there are not many quarterbacks in football that I think there's more pressure on than Josh Allen to get things done, and they're continuing to try to figure things out salary cap wise around them.
I think they were about $42 million over the cap. After yesterday, they are $9 million. So renegotiations and cutting. The Dolphins are $20 million over the cap. The Chargers are $20 million over the cap. The Saints have been through this for like 3 years now. They're still $17 million over the cap. The 49ers are $290,000 over the cap. So
close.
Hopefully they can find. In terms of cap space, Commanders, $91 million in cap space.
Well, if you're going to suck, at least have money to spend.
Patriots, $88 million. Titans are $75, and the Texans are $70. So doesn't always compute that those guys will spend money, but I think certainly in the Patriots side, they're going to spend. I think the Commanders with a new owner, they're going to spend. Titans probably won't because they're kind of one of the poorer owners in the league. Might see some action from the Texans, who've already signed guys. They a 3-year deal to Dalton Schultz and KRME Fairburn, their kicker, got a 3-year deal too. Getting closer, free agency firing up, draft season, all that good stuff. That will take us to the end of the road, football and baseball. Ray, a pleasure as always. Let's do it again tomorrow.
I think I can sign up for that, Kyle. Deal.
You're already signed up for it. So.
Okay.
You're going to be here whether you want to or not.
Right.
We'll be back tomorrow at 11. Hope all of you are back as well. Great stuff visiting and hanging out in the chat room, wherever you consume us. We appreciate you jumping in day by day. Talk to you tomorrow. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.